So here is one of those old-fashioned alarm clocks I want to work with today. As you can see, the back comes off. I took the inside out, the glass and so on, and I rescued some of the pieces. This big piece here I haven't gotten apart yet, but here are some gears and some dials I will be using in my project, and hopefully my handyman can help me with this thing so I can use those main gears for some future project. Anyway, I'm planning to decorate this clock in a similar style as this piano here. Now, if you have not seen this project before, there will be a link below to the video. Now, this piano lives in my living room, which is not my usual place to keep my art because my hubby is not absolutely crazy about some of my assemblages, but he likes the piano. So I want to make a second project and hopefully he will like that one too. So for the purpose, I picked all the small items I had in my stash. There are some tiny toys, there are game pieces, there are a lot of bits and pieces from the handyman department, electrical appliances, and you name it. So as I said, I picked all the smaller items because this whole project is going to be confined inside this clock. So everything is going to be a bit tiny. Now I hope to use some of these pieces, of course, but I also just recently got a little stash of actual broken watch parts. So there are tiny gears and little metal pieces, and I think those will come in handy as well. Now, when I took the clock apart, I made a small modification here on the top. I took the clapper here and I moved it forward in the position where the stopper originally was, and it fit perfectly and it's very tight in there, and that gives me the open hole which I hope to use sometime later. Now, the legs and the belts do not come off, so I will have to work with it this way. I will start with this doll hand here, which was part of my stash, and I want to attach other elements all around in the circle inside the clock. I will also decorate the lid, of course, and like always with these assemblages, it's a bit hard for me to know what to film and what to just explain and show you, because it's a long process, and this project was no exception. Actually, it took especially long because of the funny angle I'm working with. I could only glue down like 4 or 5 elements. I had to let it dry and then I had to turn it into a different angle. So it took actually a couple of days before I was able to glue everything down because there was so much drying time involved. Right here is one of the main pieces I will glue to the lid. It's a pewter piece broken off some type of decoration, and it has a pretty rose right in the middle. And I will also use some texture paste to adhere some of the smaller things. Sometimes that's easier than glue. So from here on, I will jump all over the place. I will explain when I have to, but I think for the most part, you can understand where I'm going with this. Here I'm filling in some of the holes, but I will leave those 2 big holes open. And yes, I should have shown you this lid before it got all the texture paste, but as you can see, they're just small little buttons and kids' toys. Everything is fairly flat on this piece. So that needs to dry, but on the back side here, I want to add an old vintage photo. I picked this one because it will give me the opportunity to cut open those holes without destroying the faces of the people, and it also has a great look to it. So in order for the photo to fit into my circle, I extend it a wee bit. I give it a bit of extra color using some distress ink, and then I glue it down with my tacky glue. Now the clock is fairly deep and I want to add a lot of elements to the inside. So I'm hoping at this point that these 2 holes I am opening will allow more light to come into my project, and at the same time they can serve as some interesting peek holes. Next, I will be adding some of the dials and some of the gears I took from the clock I'm working on. So those are here on the outside, as you can see. And after everything is dry, I start adding some black gesso. So the lid can pretty much get finished, and then I will go on to the bigger part. So from here on, I will turn you over to some music. Like always, my mediums will be in the captions. I will, of course, talk to you if I have to explain something. So please enjoy the process, and please don't mind the little kids' voices you hear sometimes in the background. It has been pointed out to me before. People thought that I didn't know they were on when I do my voiceover. But yeah, I have two grandkids living upstairs, and yes, you can hear them sometimes. So I hope you don't mind it. I don't mind it. And I'll talk to you later. Enjoy. So at this point, the inside is done. Everything is glued and dried, but it's a bit top heavy now. So I want to anchor it, and I'm using a piece from an old license plate. I also have this nice looking piece of metal with nail holes. So I cut it in half, replace the nail holes, and I use it on each side of the clock. Now, gluing down metal on a bent surface is always a bit tricky. So after adding some E6000, I secured it with some balloons. You can use elastic bands, you can use rope, but it really helps it to dry in the right position. So after my texture paste had thoroughly dried, and I only added it to the in-between places, not so much on the elements themselves, I was able to cover everything in black gesso. And for this particular project, it took forever. First of all, there were so many sides and angles to everything, but also the spaces were very tight and very hard to get to. So it took a small eternity, but here it is done. Everything is covered very thoroughly and it's ready for some paint. And just like you saw me do with the lid, I will use my dry brush and very little paint to get the right effect. Alright, here is my completed piece. The lid is not on yet, but first I want to show you some of the parts I added to it afterwards. I have a tiny nut here on the top, a little bead, a tiny gear, a bigger gear with a ball chain. Then here on the top I added a key. I kept all those elements in silver. Then here on the other side I have a jack. And I also have this great spring, and in order to attach it, I added a second one of those little hooks in hindsight. So here is one more look at all the details. I like the variety of textures and surfaces. I like this old metal pieces. I like my Monopoly top hat. And here on the very bottom, I kept it a little bit bare because you can still see that this license plate came from Colorado. Now here on the bottom, I added some felt because it had some sharp edges and it will protect my living room counter. And here is another close-up of the inside. And as you can see, I was able to add about 3 rows of bits and pieces. So here the lid I kept a bit lighter than the rest. I also added that red color to the rows. And here on the back side is a photo one more time, which did not go down perfectly, but I'm okay with it. It kind of fits the look. Now the lid is very snug. It fits in there very tight, so it does not need any glue, and therefore I can open it up again if I want to. So here is one more look through the peepholes, which is kind of cool, I think. And here on the other side, even though you can't see it so well with my black background, the holes do really help to let more light in, and you can easier see all the elements. And here you can see the rose peeking through and some of the other things I added to the inside of the lid. Now, I thought the hole on the top would be a perfect place to add another very interesting element. I had a few of these party lights, you know, they go on the finger. They usually have a little loop, which I cut off. This one is a green one, but I also had a blue one. I went ahead and I colored it in the same color as the clock here, and it fits perfectly in the hole, and it's so tight that, again, I don't have to glue it. It does not fall out. And of course, I can turn it on and ta-da! We have light. And I really like the way this looks. I think the blue is very fitting. and it really illuminates the inside of this clock. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope the basic informations were enough to show you how to put a project like this together. Of course, if you attempt something like this, your bits and pieces are going to be completely different, which means your results going to be very unique. And that's the fun part about these type of projects. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for coming. I hope to see you really soon again. Until then, bye bye for now.